there and welcome back. This is another of my kit review. They used to call them unboxing, I call them in my way kit review. And this is a 135 Apache. It's a very nice model, reboxed by Academy. This is not an originally mold made by them. They started since some years to do excellent stuff in 132 and 135 scale. In the same line you will find from Academy a wonderful AH-60, the Black Hawk, you know, very made back in time in the early 2000. I think we made big dioramas of Black Hawk Down movie, you know, with all the crew jumping down from the Black Hawk. So the mold is excellent. Instead, in this particular box, Academy didn't propose a brand new mold made by them. They simply updated the mold coming from the IMAX Corporation. That was a kind of mysterious company that we had. I remember that in my first shop. They had these huge boxes featuring this quite nice and decent model inside. And every time I remember that the price was extremely competitive. Consider that this model, it's something that you can find around for around $20 to $25, so it's something absolutely not expensive. Yes, $20 to $25. A decal sheet costs much more than that, and is in very big scale. And they have this wonderful box art. I think they feature something maybe used by the Americans in the Gulf area. You know, United States can be also used by Israeli and the Royal Air Force. Also Japanese think they have it. What they did basically, different from what I remember of one of the boxes that I opened at the time of the IMAX Corporation original box, was the type of plastic, because they made this one in gray. Instead, the one that I remember from IMAX that I had back in time was molded in green. So that was the main difference. You know, they feature a very nice decal sheet featuring one of the modern version of the Apache, so low visibility gray, and shark mouth in the front. Remember that this type of helicopter you can also make in the European one scheme, in the green scheme that was used also before and during the Gulf War. So there is plenty of documentation and millions of information about this quite common helicopter. It's interesting to know that despite it is still one of the best, not in my opinion the best, but still one of the best choppers around, it's very interesting how McDonnell Douglas, this was made by Hughes in the beginning and then retaken by McDonnell Douglas, that overtake everything in the production of the modern helicopters. It's still proposed to secondary air forces, also to Italian Air Force. It is proposed to them at very bargain price. You know, I was just talking with a guy that was a military guy making the maintenance over our A129 Mangusta type, you know, that is the smallest fighting helicopter, you know, it's not a transport one. And he said that when they had to develop the Mangusta together with Agusta Corporation, that was still in Italy, talking of something like 20 years ago, when they were nearly there with the finished product, the McDonnell Douglas Corporation arrived to them and offered the Apache at a very cheaper price, just to avoid them to develop a newer type of helicopter that was not made by them. And instead of that, the Italians refused that and went on for their own idea. You know, it was very good for the production of Italian stuff. I don't know if it is good for the product, because at the end the Apache is still one of the masterpieces around, still one of the best chopper around that you can use for this purpose, you know. And the quality is absolutely nice. You know, they have this very big mold, fuselage in two pieces, classical, you know. Upper there is show clearly the time of the age. Remember that if you really are a plane freak and you really like the model of the AH-64 that cost much more than 20 bucks, you can go for, I think it was the Tacom kit that they just made in 135 scale, that of course is much more updated, much more modern, like a mold. But also with this one I've seen plenty of models finished in a wonderful condition. You know, the only negative point that this mold has, it is because probably of his age. It was, first of all, that in many boxes you could find this plastic part completely damaged. You know, I remember that several IMAX that we had in the shop had probably a crack over the box, so nearly all the parts in transparent were cracked, and that it being so transparent there is no way to keep it straight again, so you have really to change the part when it was possible. Plus they don't have so many details in the inner copy, you know, there is just the basic, and you have to consider that anyway this type of model is something coming from the late 90s, I guess, you know, beginning of nearly 30 years ago. So despite everything the model shows, also the landing gear is quite simple. It's also true that the Apache it is not so visible, just the final part, for whom they provide very nice rear rubber tires, you know. And you see also the cockpit. I think there was also a lot of other extra companies making photo etched said, as well as a resin part surely for the cockpit detailing, you know. Of course you have to consider the value for money of what you are buying, because if you start to search for a resin detail of a cockpit that is quite so big pieces, you know, start from the rear, the main part of the rotor, quite generically in details, so quite lacking of details. It's also true that at the end you see through that hole, so you just have to detail that hole in the best way possible, you know. There is plenty of documentation for that. But if you start to search for a resin detail that costs maybe something like 30 bucks, 40 bucks, and all the model is worth 20 bucks, I don't know if it is worth it, you know. Maybe a photo etch set can be done. Otherwise, my tip is just to build it like it is and enjoy the building of the helicopter, you know, because the final look is anyway impressive. What was extremely good in this helicopter was that already at the time the IMAX Corporation provided a lot of Hellfire missile and details, you know, that of course can be still upgraded to a modern standard, you know. They are quite simple and basically, you know, but there is in the decal sheet that we seen before, there is a lot of details also for that stuff. Look at here, there is two main decal sheet. This is the decal sheet most, this is the protection probably for the cockpit, you know, so it's extremely easy to paint it with a kind of mask. And there is all the details for the missiles and all the minor part that you can find over the helicopter. So quite simple, but in my opinion is absolutely worth the money that they ask for it. So if you want to go for a kind of cheap choice, that is not so cheap, because I think that anyway if you paint this stuff in the proper way with the proper washing and dry brush effect and watering and weathering, sorry, and so on, it becomes absolutely stunning model. I already did it back in time, and it was a really wonderful kit, despite it's still quite simple, you know. The details is absolutely simple. One of the trickiest part when you build up a big scale helicopters, always considering the transporting of the model, you know, because when it is finished, the helicopters have this big rotor, you know, 4 sprockets or 5 sprockets, so they take a lot of space. So that's why many modelers decide to leave it free, the final part of the rotor, so you can remove it and transport the model without any major issue, you know. It's just that when you are done, you have to place it back, the rotor in position, because otherwise you have anyway a rotor that is 20 centimeter plus 5 centimeter plus another 20, so it became 45 centimeters of space completely taken by a rotor. So it became a little more tricky with helicopter, you know. This is a typical critical point, in my opinion, to the possibility to place in the showcase your helicopters. That's it. Absolutely worth it. Few parts, you know, but extremely detailed. This is the cheapest choice. If you want to go for something bigger, go absolutely for the Tacom kit. But as I say, Tacom have I think they proposed 2 type of different boxes, you know. I think my colleague have it, and I'm not so keen in the building up. I just took it because of the bargain price, to be honest to you, you know. And in my opinion is absolutely a very good choice. So if you like this type of model, absolutely go for it. And very cheap. Just check in Amazon and eBay, because they are really something that you cannot absolutely miss. Well done, Academy, as usual. See you in the next.